guys, welcome to this lesson 7. Before we get started, if you're using this editor, I was talking to the creator of AutoHotkey Studio, Malistraith, and he put my theme that I've been using in here. So if you click download themes, you'll see Obsidian Sword, or this one actually is the right one. And that's going to give you exactly the same theme that you see me using, so that's cool. But let's go ahead and get started here. Last time we had a little bit of trouble updating the GUI, and I figured that out after the recording. It was, for some reason, I was specifying which GUI to use as the default here in the main thing, and that's global, but for some reason that wasn't working. I just threw it up in here, and that seemed to have solved the issue. But let's go ahead and learn something new. When you're using AutoHotkey, there might be something that you can't quite do in AutoHotkey, but there's some other tool out there that can. And if it's a command line utility, we can get it running in AutoHotkey as well. So, for example, I was working with some PDF files and I wanted to read them, but if you try to read a PDF file, it can be pretty tricky. Thankfully, there's a PDF to text, a binary of some kind, command line utility, and I was able to use that in AutoHotkey. The way you want to do it is you're going to use the run command, and that lets you run anything actually. You could run another AutoHotkey script, you could run you can just tell it to run a text file if you want to pop open a text file for the user. Most often I'm using it with command line utilities, so the way you want to do that is you're going to specify comspec. Comspec is basically just a built-in variable for the location of your CMD, or command prompt. I'll open it up here. CMD. Basically, you're just opening this. /C, I believe, is going to close it when it's done so that your script can continue. Now, one thing to note is you can use run, or you can use run wait. The main difference is run is going to run your command and continue on down executing commands. Run wait is going to wait until that has completed before continuing. So I'm usually using run wait because I need to know that it's finished before I move on. And here we see one example that I've just copied out of a script somewhere where I'm using just the word ping. And of course ping, let me get my command prompt open again. Ping is just used to send a ping out to a website. So let's just ping google.com. And we see that Google is replying. So I'm using it in some script to ping a certain server before I send more commands, because if the server is offline, then we want to kind of know. I don't quite remember all of these offhand. Obviously, the IP address is google.com in that case. I don't quite remember offhand what these are. I think this is number of retries or amount of period to wait, something like that. Now on the end of run, use error level. I don't remember what that is used for in this particular circumstance, but I'm also going to specify the word hide. When you specify hide as one of the options, hide is going to make it's going to run that command prompt, but it's not going to be visible to the user. So I'm running maybe 30 of them for each server, or one for each server, of which there are 30 servers, and I don't want to have 30 command prompts popping up on the screen. So I just run it with hide so that it doesn't bother whoever's running the tool. I left it out here maybe so we could see it. But yeah, let's go ahead and we'll try this example. In this example, I'm using a different command line utility called Robocopy. It's built into Windows. It's for moving files or copying files, and the reason I use it is because I didn't want to reinvent the wheel for my particular use case where, Microsoft has got a lot of built-in commands here already that I don't need to go through and start reinventing the way they figured out how to do it. So I'm using this command, I think. Anyways, so go ahead and always keep an open mind as to trying to find a way it's already been accomplished before. You don't need to reinvent the wheel by doing figuring out the time for each file and moving each file if it's not in use. Robocopy is going to take care of most of that for you. So in here I'm specifying Robocopy. It takes a source, or where the files are being copied from, and then a destination where the files are being copied to, and then it also takes what type of file. In this case I'm just saying this is the dot, so I could say .mp3 if I only wanted to use mp3 files, but in this case I don't have any mp3 files there, so it would be kind of useless. I don't want to do that actually, now that I think about it. Okay, so let's just copy all of what we had last time out. Actually, let me see that one more time. We might use that, so I'll just keep it on my clipboard. And build GUI, I'll leave the GUI built. Okay, so it'll jump down into here and run. And let's see what that does. Now because I didn't specify the word hide, we should see it. Okay, it's mad because there's no, what was the name of that? Button update. There's no label where our thing was pointing, so let's try that again. Okay, there we go. You saw it real quick. Because I have the /c specified, it's going to close immediately. Let's run that once more so we can actually see it. And for some reason I don't even see the command going. Okay, well you get the idea. When you run it, it's going to run through. There's only like 5 files in there, so it didn't take very long. Okay, so that's kind of how you are going to run command line utilities from outside of your script. For anyone who wants to learn more about Robocopy, definitely check out their documentation. It's pretty good. They've got it pretty organized. Now I mentioned I use this move. There's a lot of different options that I use in my case. Let's take a look at them. I'm using /move, minimum age. Yeah, so the minimum age of the file. I don't want to move files that were just created today, so I have a variable that remembers the age that I'm working with. The file log, I'm just logging to a location. A bunch of different stuff. Very useful. Love it. Okay. The other thing I wanted to go through today is a while loop. Actually, let me just throw this down here so we can keep hold of it. Button update is now in 2 places, which would not be good. Okay, so in the past we've been dealing with text files that have everything we want on one line, and that's not always going to be the case, right? In particular, Robocopy, which I was just dealing with, their logs look a little bit more like this, where every one job is going to make this header. It's going to say when it started, the source, the destination, what type of files, the options that we specified. So I think this means retry 1,000 times and wait 30 milliseconds between each retry. The minimum age of the file that we were talking about, don't move files older than or younger than 3 days. So anyways, it goes through all these, and here's the files that it found on that particular day. And then here's a new one, but it ended at this time. So that is how, oh, this is pretty old, 2004. That is a different case where not everything we want is on one line. How should we deal with this? Well, the one way that I've found that works well for me is a while loop. And a while loop, let's read the documentation, I suppose it's best. A while loop performs a series of commands repeatedly until the specified expression evaluates to false. So let's look at this while loop that I set up. I stripped out a bunch of stuff so that we could actually look at it without being too long. But what it's checking every time it's basically a loop that goes forever until this in parentheses part is no longer true. So in here I've specified the more jobs variable to true. And while loops, you want to be careful that you never get stuck in a infinite loop, because if this never changes to false, then it's never going to get out of this loop. So it's always good to kind of check your work, or double check your work with while loops. So the way this is working is, first we are reading a file. This actually won't work, but I'll keep that in mind for later. It's part of a different part of the lesson I want to go over. The memory file, read the memory file. Let's just specify it like this. I think that should work. Okay, and now I'm not moving it into an array like we've done before. I'm just leaving it in one variable. And what we're going to do to that variable is we're going to pull out each job as a smaller section of that large, the memory file variable. And we're just going to call that variable job. So I know this is, if you remember my quick regex function, it just pulls out the part that we're interested in. So let's look at what that is. I set it up here, and let's grab that pattern. Okay, it's going to look like this. This is what I've worked out as ran into some kind of timeout. No, that's okay. There we go. All right. So the way this works is, first it's going to look for this. Let me walk you through it actually. First we're going to look for this Robocopy word, and let's just grab everything after that. I'm using the /x, which is, if we look over here, matches any number of Unicode characters. So it's basically everything. The reason that I didn't use dot period is matching any character does not match a new line. So I needed something else to get every single line in this one job. I want to stop right around here. I don't want to get the next job because I need that for the next one. So I'm using /x, and let's see, well, that's grabbing too much. That's grabbing our next job as well. So let's see how we did this was, okay, we use this star, which is 0 more, but we could use plus, that's fine too. And then the question mark is telling us do it as little as possible. By default, this plus is going to grab as much as it can go. In this case, I'm using the question mark to specify, let's see, as few times as possible. This is sometimes called lazy. Okay, and then I'm going up until I find the word ended. So if I didn't have that question mark, it would go to the next one and say, oh, here's ended right here as well. I'll grab that one as well because I'm not in the little as possible mode. Alright, and I've got some other stuff there. I've got the, you probably don't even need that, but this is probably a good way to keep you from getting stopped on a file name ended. And then the rest of this is just grab the rest of that line, which is probably not even needed. Actually it is, because I used this in some part, but we won't be using that today. So we'll use this pattern, and this is going to return this entire block. And that is going into our variable called job. And maybe what we'll do is we'll call that current job. we'll just call that current job just so we can stay a little more clear on what's going on. And so, okay, so we grabbed all of that block and we put it in this other, into this other variable. Now, important to note, the memory file is still everything. It's still that entire file. So next we say if the current job is not equal to null, and that's what I get when my function can't find anything, if it was successful, if it did find a job in there, then we say x plus plus, x was equal to 0. And actually there's no reason to use this because while does use a index, so this is a little bit over, using this x is unneeded, but I must not have known that when I wrote this, or didn't look it up. Okay, and so then we're going to do some fairly standard things that we've done in the past. Is we're going to grab the system name using that same function and this pattern. So let's try that out. Now keep in mind everything after here is gone. I could delete it, but as you can tell, this file is quite long, so that would take a while. But so we're running just this block through. Where's the ended? Did I delete too much? Oh no, there's the ended right there. Let me just put more space. And we will just imagine that the rest of it is gone because we're right now just looking at that current job. So let's grab the source. Let's grab, what else do we have here? The size moved. Let's grab the type moved. That's going to be, I'm not going to walk us through these patterns, but I'll show it to you. I'll just grab this one real quick. This one is what? The bytes. So the total bytes moved. Okay. And then I also have another one to grab the type. Now what happens is the type, we have some rules. If the type is gigabytes, then we have to convert it down into megabytes. If it's megabytes, we don't convert it anywhere. We just say you are now equal to this other variable called size moved MB. And then if it's kilobytes, looks like we divide the size moved by 1024. Okay. And now here's the important part I want you to pay attention to. We're going to remove that current job from memory file. So what we have here is string replace. I don't know if we've gone through this. No, we went through string split before. So let's read the documentation for string replace. Okay, so here you can use it like its own function with these as options, and that requires a newer version, so make sure you're on the latest. Or you have the older style, you can do it as a kind of a command, an AutoHotkey command. And it's a little bit, to me, harder. This way is better. And so the output var is going to be assigned to, here if you remember the idea of a haystack and a needle, in this case they're calling it search text. So let's look at how that works. Maybe what I'll do is go like this, see if I can get that little, not getting that little help drop down. There we go. Okay. So string replace takes the haystack. The haystack is the big thing, the big memory file. The search text, we want to find the current job that we're taking, that we want to take out, because we just grabbed all the information we wanted from it. And then the replace text. Now you'll notice this bracket means everything afterwards is optional, because we're not going to be using output var count, which would tell you how many times it was removed, and we don't need a limit. I guess we could use a limit, but we're not going to. I mean, even though a limit of 1 would make sense in this case, I believe. Otherwise, the limit is -1, which probably means unlimited. But in our case, what we're doing is we're taking the big file, we're taking out the current job that we just finished with, and we're replacing it with this, which is a blank. We're just removing it. Okay? And once we've removed that, we go into our something called memory array. Don't even know if this was ever created because I copied it from another script. And we're going to just save everything. Now, did we actually grab all of this? I don't think so. I think we just grabbed the system name. We didn't grab a system type. We didn't grab a date. We did grab the file. Did we grab the files moved? No, we grabbed the size moved and the type moved. I don't even see type moved. Oh, because type moved is not remembered anywhere. It's just used to convert it. So let's go ahead and just remove all this. Okay. So we're saving it to memory array, and then we're basically done. We're going to go back into the loop, because here's the end of the loop. What is this, you might be wondering? Well, this is very important. This is what's happening when current job cannot be found. When there's no more jobs, else more jobs is now becoming false. When we hit the end of this while, we're going to go back up in here and say, are there more jobs? No, it's now false. We're done with this entire while loop. So that's very important. Like I said, you don't want to get stuck in a while loop indefinitely. If this was not here or commented out, this script would never finish, because there's no way for more jobs to ever equal false. It's always going to equal true. So probably that could be even safer somehow. Alright. The only other thing I wanted to go over loops a little bit more. Loops in general, let's look at the documentation. We've talked about normal loops. Here's a while loop. It's I guess written under loop. But we haven't talked so much. We talked about reading the file contents, which was loop, and then the word read, input file. You read each line as that one variable. But the one thing I wanted to mention was, let's see if I can find it again, looping files and folders. At some point, it's going to be useful for you to loop through and find all the files in a directory, and that's how you would do it, is with this. Otherwise, just as a quick recap, loop the number of times you want to do it, everything in there. Now, the way we often do it is we're going to specify an expression, and we're going to say the what was the name of that? Memory array dot max index, and every object has the access to max index, which is just telling you how many elements are in that. So in this case, memory array is probably like however many jobs we have in that log file. So it's probably like 90. So this is, in other words, just saying loop 90 times if we wanted to go through all of our array. So maybe let's, what we'll do is, where's LV add? There you are. Let's LV add, and before we do that, let's do our specify our GUI that we're working with. I think this will work right out of the box. No, it won't, because what's going on here? We got the wrong array specified. The memory array, the server name. Let's change this to A index. And let's just grab this, file moved. It's not a %. Oop. Okay, I think that'll probably work. Let's give it a shot. See what we see. No, what's going on? Oh, I know what's going on. We're building the GUI, then we might not be reading this right. Let's just use a message box to see what this is. The memory file. Okay. We forgot to tell it this is an expression. The memory file. Okay, it's not being loaded correctly. So why is that? File name. Well, this is a file name. I think we want it more like this. Okay, there we go. Now we got everything. Let's remove that. Okay, so free disk space is all this. Now our server name didn't quite work. Why is that? Because this is system name, not server name. Let's just change this one actually. Server name. Alright, and there we go. I believe, well, I guess they're all working kind of how we were thinking. Okay, so great. We grabbed everything out of that entire log file, and they all weren't on the same line, so we grabbed all the information from it, converted it here, and then spat it out to the GUI. So that's all I wanted to cover for today. Thank you for showing up to class. I don't really have anything else to add, actually. So I'll see you next time. Have a good one.